All right, so I want to spend our time in this segment talking about the stimulus packages and the stimulus negotiations that have been ongoing since the beginning of coronavirus. I think it really illuminates and I would say affirms something that many of us believe, and that is goes contrary to this a belief in the Democratic Party, at least part of this country, that the Democrats and the left they're the party that stands up for the little guy. They're the party that is stretching their arm out, stretching their hand out to help the people in need, as opposed to the Republicans and the right, where they're greedy and only care about corporations and the wealthy. And I really think if we were to unpack the stimulus negotiations, I think we'd see that couldn't be furthest from the truth, and that the Democratic Party doesn't really give a damn at all about the little guy and the people that need help. That's not to say that every single Democrat is like that, but I think the party at large. I think it would be best. Let's go through the timeline of exactly what happened, and then I'll give my thoughts on that. So obviously, come the beginning of 2020, Donald Trump is president, economy is booming. Along comes COVID-19. COVID-19 devastates our economy. Our economy practically shuts down. How much it had to shut down, should it have shut down, is not for this conversation, but fact is our economy shut down, and we needed a stimulus. We needed a bill to pass and to help people that had their businesses shut down, lost their jobs, and literally couldn't put food on the table. So it started the first bill, the first stimulus, the first funding bill that passed, that was on March 6th. That was an $8.3 billion bill. That was really to kickstart the funding to search for a vaccine. The second one, March 18th, that was a $104 billion stimulus bill that was mainly paid sick leave, unemployment, things like that. Then March 27th, that was the third one. That was the $2.2 trillion CARES Act. That was the one that passed, that gave the enhanced unemployment, the Paycheck Protection Program, and many other things in there. Obviously, after a while, the effects of that wore off, and another infusion was necessary, and that's where the talks picked up. May 12th, the Democrats put forth their bill, another bill. That was the HEROES Act. It was north of an 1,800-page stimulus bill with a price tag of about $3 trillion. There were things in that bill that had absolutely nothing to do with the pandemic. There were things in there for funding for mail-in voting. There were things in there for people that were incarcerated, getting them out of prisons. There were things in there for student loan forgiveness. There were things fat in there that had absolutely nothing to do with the pandemic. And obviously, I mean, it was something, even there's I think it was Katie Porter, is a Democratic representative from California, a Democratic representative, that said this is nothing but a Democratic wish list. There were things in there that had absolutely nothing to do with helping people out that were suffering due to the pandemic. So it was something which was obviously was dead on arrival the second it got to Mitch McConnell's desk. And the Democrats should have known that. And they were called out on the floor by many Republicans for trying to squeeze fat in there that had nothing to do with the pandemic. So obviously the Republicans shot it down. That was May 12th. The Republicans put their proposal, their version of a stimulus aid bill forward on July 27th, the HEALS Act, which was a $1 trillion bill. It covered the basics. It was, I think, enhanced unemployment, paycheck protection program, and things like that, funding for schools. Obviously, the Democrats rejected that. The Democrats put forth another bill on September 28th. They called it the Heroes 2.0. It was a $2.2 trillion bill, similar to the CARES Act that got passed earlier. But again, this bill had a lot of fat that had completely nothing to do with the pandemic. So obviously the Republicans shot that down. And then that's where things really, really stalled. We really got to a stalemate over there. And I mean, till now, nothing else has been passed, but the Democrats made their position crystal clear that the Republican bills did not help enough. It wasn't aimed towards helping the people that needed it most, and therefore they weren't willing to sign off on it. And that's why until today we still haven't gotten another bill passed. But recently, which is, I'd say, after the 2020 election, once it came out that it was projected, at the very least, that Biden was going to win, all of a sudden Pelosi and Schumer, at the very least, Pelosi said now she's willing to sign off on a $900 and change billion stimulus bill, less than what the Republicans initially asked for, despite the fact that the entire time she was saying that wasn't enough, which is why she wasn't willing to sign off on it. So this is just a timeline of what happened. Now, a few things about it. First, I want to point out, I've seen numerous times this charge from those on the left that are putting out this charge that the Republicans are acting in a hypocritical fashion by all of a sudden being on board with government aid and government funding and unemployment and things like that. And I think this really comes from a place of ignorance, and it's, I don't know if it's on purpose or not, but it's certainly beating up on a straw man, because that's just not the position of any conservative, no matter how fiscally conservative you are. I mean, we could look no further than Friedrich Hayek, who's arguably one of the greatest thinkers and proponents of a market system and of not having government intervention and just putting forth the classical liberal philosophy. But even Hayek, in his book, The Constitution of Liberty, he even makes it very clear that during a pandemic, things like that, government spending is there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't violate any of the principles of freedom, which we fight to protect. We're not rewarding bad behavior or encouraging bad behavior. It's an unfortunate event, and it leaves people needing literally to feed their children, to feed their families. That would certainly be part of the role and scope of government, even according to us classical liberals. So that's first thing. Another thing I want to point out is Trump is not fiscally conservative, and that happens to be one of the qualms that I had with Trump over his presidency. I mean, even when he was running in the primaries, he was touting $1 trillion infrastructure bills. He boosted spending on the military. I mean, he's increased our national debt, and he's signed huge huge bills. Donald Trump isn't a fiscal conservative. So this charge that the Democrats are coming at then the Trump administration, the White House, that they're being too fiscally conservative, that charge is a baseless charge, because it's just not true. But most importantly, and this is something I know others have pointed it out, but it's worth pointing out again and again, because we really have to take a step back over here and see exactly what is going on. From the beginning of the pandemic, the Democrats have been getting up there on the podium. They get in front of the microphone. They get in front of TV, in front of media, and they're sitting there how the American people need our help. We need to act. American people can't pay their rent. American people can't put food on their table. They can't feed their children. They're going to get evicted. All of these things, and saying we need to help them. We need to help them. I happen to agree with them. I think that is correct. That was necessary. And the charge against the Republicans the entire time was that the Republicans aren't helping enough. Now, let's pause right there, because something doesn't make sense. And I think if you think about it for just a little bit, I think you'd agree. Let me explain this with an analogy. Say we're a group. Let's say that there are 10 of us, and we're walking alongside, let's say, a riverbank. And we look out into the river and we see that there's a ship out there that's in distress. We're able to see there are people waving, and their lives are at risk. So say there's a boat nearby and we're able to go out and help them. The only catch is this boat that we're able to take to go out and help them it needs at the very least 10 people to be manned. So it would need all of us to go out there and to rescue all those people that are facing death. So all 10 of us get onto the boat and we're about to go out and help. But five of us turn to the others and say, hold on a second, before we go out, before we go save them, we'd be willing to do it, but we have conditions. We want you to promise that we're going to save all their belongings, that if there are kids there that lose parents, that we'll put them into good foster homes and make sure they have good psychologists and psychiatrists for the rest of their lives. Also, all the money that we owe you guys, we want that to be forgiven. We wanted to rezone part of the town you didn't want to. We want you to agree to that as well. And a list of other demands. Now, obviously, some of those demands are just ridiculous on its face. I mean, there's no reason for it. But even, let's say, some of the demands that are legitimate demands. Let's say save the belongings if it's possible to, then you should. Or if there are kids there, then to help them throughout life, then perhaps those are noble demands. But to make that a condition to go save people that are drowning is insane. That's pure evil. That means that you are willing, literally, to allow them to drown so long as your demands are not met. Somebody who has that position cannot get up and say, oh, I'm looking out for the little guy. I'm looking to help people. That's not how it works. That's ridiculous. And I'm not speaking hyperbole. This is literally what happened. There are people, I mean, I don't know whoever's watching this. I got hurt from this pandemic. I certainly got hurt. My business, we were shut for months. There are people that have been hurting, but thank God I'm living. I'm able to get by. There are people out there that don't have money to put food on their table. They have kids that are starving. They don't know where their next meal is going to come from. This is a reality. And here's the ironic part about it is this whole spiel that I just told you is exactly what the Democratic leaders have been saying in front of the cameras for months. And they're right. It's true. There are people that are hurting. But then in the next breath, they say, but we will not help you so long as all of our demands are met. We will let you die. We will let you starve. We will leave you alone so long as all of our demands are met. Don't forget, the Republicans came up to a $1.8 trillion bill. It covered all the bases. It covered it covered to help all the people that were the most desperately in need. Without a doubt. The Democrats said, no, we want 2.2 trillion. And the whole bill went out the window because not all of their demands were met. They literally said, to hell with all of you who are suffering. I don't care. It will not score me enough political points. And here's the biggest kick in the pants. And then now Pelosi says she's willing to sign a $900 and change billion bill. How does that make sense? How does that make any sense? Please think about it. Think about this for a second. How does that make any sense? The whole thing that they were saying is that it's not enough to help. Now all of a sudden, they believe Biden has won the presidency. Perhaps, again, not for this discussion, but the point is they believe Biden won the presidency. So now they don't care. Now they're willing to sign less. Again, if you were to look at this objectively, it is so crystal clear that the Democrats don't actually give a damn about anybody. They only care about themselves. The Democrats are willing to make the greatest sacrifices so long as it is not them making the sacrifice, rather other people. The Democrats are the most generous people in the world with other people's money. They're not willing to do it themselves. The Democrats, they paint Republicans as stingy, greedy people. Well, guess what? They don't donate more to charity than Republicans. If not, there are studies that show just the opposite. They are generous, the Democrats, but with other people's money. Bernie Sanders, the hero of the left, who sits comfortably among the top 1%, donates, I think, like 1% of his income to charity. He is a stingy person. But he's hailed as some hero because he's the most generous when it comes to other people's money. When it comes to lockdowns, the Democrats are notorious for forcing other people to live to standards they themselves wouldn't dream to live to. Of course, you can't go to a salon during a pandemic unless your name is Pelosi. Of course, you can't go to a restaurant in large groups without masks indoors during a pandemic unless your name is Newsom. Man, there's a laundry list of all of these examples. But getting back to the stimulus, it's just, if you are a business owner or you're a person that was hurt from this pandemic, please just think about this for 1 second. There's no way there's anybody who was hurt from this pandemic that has seen what has unfolded over the last 9 months or so that actually thinks that the Democrats gives a damn about them. They just don't. It's just so sad that we even have to have this conversation. It really is. But more so, it's not like it's telling us something new that we've never known. This is something that we've been saying for many of us for some time now. But we've seen it play out now so clearly. It's just so cut and dry. They don't give a damn. Now, obviously, Pelosi says that the reason why is because now that Biden won is because now she knows that we're going to get more stimulus after Biden takes office. Think about that again for more than 2 seconds, and you'll realize that doesn't even make any sense. Because if that's was really her thought process, then how come she wasn't willing to sign off on the $1.8 trillion bill before the election when she had no idea that Biden was going to win, or unless she did? Let's assume she didn't, because there's no way she would know, I would hope. Then why wouldn't she sign it then? Because she didn't know that Biden was going to win. So it makes no sense. They use these slogans and catchphrases, and the Democrats don't care about you. They simply don't. They don't care about me. They don't care about you. The only thing they care about is getting reelected and enriching themselves while donating minimally to charity. It's a sad state that we are in today, that we even have to have this discussion. And it's even more sad that it's the party that builds themselves up, their MO, their entire basis for their platform is built on a lie. It's built on this premise that other people in government don't care about you, but vote for us, we do. And that couldn't be further from the truth. It couldn't be further from the truth. Again, just think about the timeline. Think about the facts. The timeline, the facts I told you is objective fact. That's what happened. Seriously, just go over it for just a few minutes, and I don't think there's any other conclusion that anybody could come to other than the fact that Democrats don't care about you. It's as simple as that. Sadly. Anyways, thanks for watching. Please feel free to like, comment, and share. If you're not already following the page, please feel free to follow. And God willing, going to be putting out some more content on some other issues that are polarizing our country today. Thanks for watching.